Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to sift through your sources, articles, research notes, whatever you've got, and pull out the really key insights, maybe even some surprises. Today, we're looking at something visually striking, the incredible diversity you see in the people of Bolivia. I want you to try and picture this. Imagine you're on the streets of La Paz, way up high, almost in the clouds. You see Aymara women, right? In their amazing layered skirts, these polaris, they have these dark, observant eyes, long black braids. There's real strength there. Okay, now let's jump eastward. Down from the Andes, across a whole different landscape, to Santa Cruz, which is much warmer, lower altitude, and boom, the people look quite different. You start seeing Bolivians who might be taller, maybe lighter skin, sometimes even hazel or blue eyes, which can be unexpected.
Totally unexpected for many people, yeah. It shows a different strand in the genetic makeup.
Exactly. And then keep going, maybe towards the Amazon. You find indigenous groups like the Guarani, coppery skin, straight dark hair adapted for the tropics.
And then there are the Yungas valleys, where you find Afro-Bolivian communities.
Right.
Darker skin, curly hair, another distinct group.
A really vital part of the picture.
It's just, wow.
Yeah.
For a country of only about 12 million people, how do you get such a huge range of appearances?
It's a fantastic question.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Figure that out. We're going through your sources to unpack the geography, the ancestry, the migrations that sculpted this unique human landscape in Bolivia.
And it's definitely more than just listing physical traits, isn't it? It's really about the story.
The story, yes.
Human adaptation, history, identity. It's all woven together. Understanding these differences, well, it helps us grasp the real depth of the nation. It shows how history and environment literally shape us.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even start? I guess the most fundamental thing has to be Bolivia's geography, right? It's just so varied.
Absolutely. You can't overstate its impact. Bolivia is incredibly diverse geographically.
Yeah.
You've got the Andes, the Altiplano, this massive high plateau, over 300 to 500 meters up.
Higher than Denver,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. And then you drop down into these tropical lowland forests. So extreme contrasts,
That alone must drive some differences.
for sure. Look at the main indigenous groups, the Aymara and Quechua. They settled in the highlands centuries ago. And living there, in that thin air, well, it led to real physical adaptations. Things like barrel-shaped chests,
Yeah.
bigger rib cages, maybe slightly shorter limbs.
To conserve heat and oxygen.
Exactly. It's biology responding to the environment. Pure survival adaptation.
Okay.
Then you contrast that with lowland groups like the Guarani or the Moxos down in the Amazon basin. Different environment, different pressures. You see adaptations like leaner builds, maybe darker skin with a sort of coppery tone, better for heat and sun protection in the tropics.
Right.
So just the geography itself creates these really visible differences from the get-go. It's like the base layer.
That makes total sense. Geography lays the foundation.
Yeah.
But then history comes crashing in, adding whole new layers. Let's talk about the Spanish arrival, the Spanish and Mestizo legacy.
Yeah, that was obviously a huge turning point. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, it wasn't just politics that changed, it was the people. They brought European features into the mix. Lighter skin, often taller builds, different eye and hair colors. Things not really seen in the indigenous populations before.
And then came the mixing, right?
Right. Over centuries, intermarriage between Spanish colonizers and indigenous people became common. Lots of reasons for that: social, economic, sometimes forced. And this led to the rise of the Mestizo population, people with mixed indigenous and European heritage.
How large a group is that now?
Pretty significant. Your sources say maybe 30–35% of Bolivians today identify as mestizo. And you often see this interesting blend in their features, maybe tan or olive skin, dark hair that's wavy rather than straight, sometimes features that mix indigenous roundness with European angles.
Where do you mostly see that?
It's particularly common in cities like Cochabamba and Sucre. These were, historical centers where cultures really met and mingled. It's like a living link between those two heritages.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating, I think. Let's zoom in on specific traits because the nuances here are incredible. Skin tone, for instance. Your sources show a huge spectrum.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a painter's palette. Up on the Altiplano, the Aymara and Quechua tend to have these medium to dark bronze tones. Great adaptation for that intense high-altitude sun.
Makes sense.
Then you go down to the lowlands, the Amazonian groups like the Guarani, often lighter brown tones, sometimes with this sort of golden or coppery look. Again, adaptation.
And then the other groups we mentioned.
Right. You've got the Afro-Bolivian communities in the Yungas with deep brown, sometimes ebony skin tones. And then particularly in places like Santa Cruz or Tarija, you find families of European descent with much fairer complexions.
So it's really the whole range.
The whole range. It's like reading Bolivia's history right there on people's skin.
But it's not just about visual variety, is it? Your research connects the skin tone spectrum directly to social dynamics, even power.
Yes, and this is a really critical point the sources make. Historically, and even still today to some extent, there's been a correlation between lighter skin and holding economic and political power.
Hmm.
Conversely, darker-skinned Bolivians, particularly indigenous and Afro-Bolivian communities, have historically faced more discrimination. It's a difficult truth. Lighter skin became associated in some ways with higher social status. It's complex, and it even plays out sometimes within indigenous groups where subtle tone differences might affect perceptions.
Wow. So it's deeply woven into the social fabric.
It really is. It shows how history and societal biases can attach themselves to physical traits.
Okay, let's shift slightly. Eye color. You might think South America, mostly brown eyes, but your sources mention a rare surprise.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It definitely challenges stereotypes. Most Bolivians, yes, maybe 85–90% do have brown eyes,
Hmm.
typical for indigenous ancestry. But that European admixture we talked about, it brought lighter eye colors into the gene pool. So your sources estimate maybe 10–12% of Bolivians actually have hazel, green, or even blue eyes.
Really? That high?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
You see it more, as you'd expect, in urban mestizo populations and among those with stronger European descent, especially in cities like Santa Cruz. It's quite possible to meet a blonde, blue-eyed Bolivian there, which is a stark contrast to the almost universal deep brown eyes you'd find way up in the Altiplano.
That really paints a picture of that genetic mixing.
It's a mosaic,
Yeah.
far more intricate than people often assume.
Okay, skin, eyes. What about height and build? We have averages, but I bet the regional differences are significant here too.
You bet right. The average is like 5'6" for men, 5'2" for women. They kind of hide the real story.
So what's the real story?
Well, up in the Andes, the Aymara and Quechua communities often have shorter, stockier builds. And that's not random. It's efficient for the cold, thin air, helps conserve heat, good for high-altitude work.
Right, and elsewhere.
Bolivians with more European ancestry might trend taller and leaner, different genetics, different historical conditions perhaps. And then the lowland indigenous groups, often medium builds, maybe shorter stature again, but adapted differently more for heat in humid tropical areas.
But there's another factor too, isn't there? Nutrition.
Hugely important, yes. The sources point out that malnutrition is still a challenge. Something like 12% of kids experience stunting, which impacts adult height.
That's tough.
It is.
Yeah.
But there's also a positive trend. Younger generations, especially in cities with better nutrition and healthcare, seem to be growing taller.
So things are changing.
Yeah, slowly closing that gap with global averages. It shows how social factors directly impact physical traits over time.
Fascinating. Okay, let's quickly cover hair and facial features. What are the main patterns and variations?
Okay, dominant indigenous hair trait.
Mm-hmm.
Straight, thick, usually black, very resilient, often worn long.
Classic Andean look, maybe.
Kind of, yeah.
Mhm.
But then you get variations. Mestizos often have wavy, dark brown hair that mix again. Lighter brown, even blonde hair shows up in your European-descended families.
Mm.
And of course, the Afro-Bolivian community brings in curly and coiled textures, really distinct and beautiful.
And faces.
Also, a lot of variety. Aymara and Quechua often have broader faces, strong cheekbones, maybe almond-shaped eyes, features shaped by millennia in the Andes. Mestizos, again, the blend. Maybe a narrower nose, but with a strong indigenous jawline, or different eye shapes with olive skin.
A real mix.
Exactly. Afro-Bolivians might have fuller lips, features reflecting their African heritage, and European descendants tend towards more angular faces, lighter features. Well, it's the whole human story written in faces across the country.
Incredible detail in every feature. Now let's focus on one group we've mentioned, the Afro-Bolivians. Small in number, but a really significant legacy.
Absolutely crucial. Their story is powerful. We're talking about maybe 16,000 people, descendants of enslaved Africans brought over during colonial times. Imagine forced into labor, sometimes even in the Potosi silver mines, of brutal high-altitude conditions. Their survival and ability to build communities, mostly in the Yungas valleys, is just remarkable resilience.
The Yungas offered a slightly better environment.
A bit more forgiving, yes.
Yeah.
Somewhat tropical. But their distinct features, the darker skin, the curly hair, often taller frames, make them stand out in the broader population.
And their culture.
So vibrant. They fiercely preserve traditions like the Saya music and dance. It's not just performance, it's Deep cultural expression, roots going back to Africa, but uniquely Bolivian now.
I've heard of the Saya. Powerful stuff.
It really is. And they're increasing visibility, especially after getting official recognition as an ethnic group in 2009. That speaks volumes about Bolivia's evolving identity. It acknowledges all the threads.
Which brings us back to that tricky question. Looking at all this diversity, is there actually a typical Bolivian look? Seems like a loaded question.
It is, and your sources show there's no consensus.
Huh.
Some argue, yes, the typical Bolivian is indigenous shorter, bronze skin, dark hair and eyes, the altiplano image.
Okay.
Others say, no, it's the mestizo now, the blend, especially in the cities where most people live.
Right.
And then others strongly argue there is no single look. You have to include Afro-Bolivians, European descendants, the whole spectrum. It's an ongoing debate.
And this debate isn't just academic, is it? It touches on deeper issues.
Exactly. The research suggests it reflects real tensions about power and representation. Lighter-skinned Bolivians tend to be more visible in media, in leadership.
Creating a skewed image sometimes.
Potentially, yeah. While indigenous features, representing the majority, might be underportrayed or stereotyped, it's part of a larger conversation about who defines the national identity, indigenous majority versus historical elites.
A complex power dynamic played out visually.
Pretty much. The typical look question becomes a proxy for these deeper societal issues.
So we've seen the past and present. What about the future? Will Bolivia stay this diverse, or will it all blend together eventually?
Well, the forecasts suggest Bolivia will likely remain one of Latin America's most indigenous countries. Those roots run incredibly deep.
But things are changing.
Definitely. Urbanization, migration, these forces keep mixing people. Intermarriage is common, especially in cities, so
Yeah.
you'll see more blending of features. The Bolivian look is definitely evolving.
But not disappearing.
Doesn't seem like it.
Hmm.
At the same time, you have this incredible resilience. Indigenous groups are reviving languages, traditions. Afro-Bolivians are pushing for and getting more recognition. European-descended groups add their piece, too. Scientifically speaking, this diversity, genetic and cultural, is actually a huge strength.
How so?
It makes the population more adaptable, more resilient to change, whether that's environmental or social. It's a dynamic mix of deep heritage and constant evolution.
Wow, what a deep dive that was. From the Andes to the Amazon, through history, adaptation, survival, all visible in the faces of Bolivians. It really is a story told by mountains and jungles, indigenous strength, African resilience, European arrivals, and centuries of mixing. You see it in skin, eyes, build, hair, everything.
Every feature tells part of that story.
So the key takeaway for you listening, next time you think of Bolivia, don't picture just one face. Picture a tapestry woven with indigenous threads, Afro-descended threads, mestizo threads, European threads, all tangled and beautiful, forming one unique nation.
Yeah, and maybe the final thought is this. How does really seeing Bolivia's diversity challenge our ideas about what a national identity even looks like? What does it teach us about human adaptation, about how people interact and shape each other over time? It really hammers home that difference isn't division. It is identity. Rich, complex, evolving identity.